Greetings, YouTube. I recently became aware of an organization known as the Alliance Defense Fund. The Alliance Defense Fund, the ADF, has been created as a sectarian conservative counterpart to the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. And the ADF's purpose is the exact opposite of the ACLU. The ACLU defends minority rights against the majority. The ADF, however, defends the majority rights and attempts to prove in court that minority groups are not entitled to have the same privileges as the majority in the community at large. And this, of course, has come up because of the Perry versus Schwarzenegger case in California, where essentially the ADF is trying to argue that because the majority of people in California don't want gay people to have equal rights, then they shouldn't have equal rights. When in reality, of course, it is the judicial's job to make sure that minority groups are given rights in the face of the oppression of the majority. So the ADF is, in no uncertain terms, an organization founded on the concept of bullying fellow Americans, about saying that because you're different, we, the majority, get to tell you what to do, even though you're law-abiding, consenting adults, simply because we outnumber you. And that isn't a particularly egalitarian point of view, now is it? It isn't very open, very tolerant. It isn't very just, and quite frankly, it isn't very constitutional. Now, I've heard a number of arguments quite recently about the whole same-sex marriage issue. And one person brought up a really interesting point to me. They said that years ago, people were complaining that the gay community wasn't deserving of equal rights because they have a promiscuous lifestyle, particularly speaking about gay men. So, jump forward to our current era, and the gay community is trying to seek out the right to marry, and these same people are still blocking these efforts, even though this would establish that there are members of the gay community who want long-term monogamous relationships. So it seems that you're screwed one way and you're screwed the other. You just can't win. Of course, another line I hear frequently is the procreation, that in the eyes of people who are against same-sex marriage, that they feel that the only viable reason to get married is procreation, is the production of children. Except, of course, people get married every day who aren't going to have children, who may not even be capable of bearing children, and yet they're allowed to get married. I'm on my second marriage. I have filed for 2 different marriage licenses, and that's exactly what they were called, folks. Marriage licenses, even though I had civil unions in both cases. Both were conducted by a justice of the peace. And in neither case was I required to prove that I planned on having children, or that I was even fertile. Because I don't plan on having children. I am fertile, I just don't want kids. So, that particular argument to me falls flat. And let's not to mention people who get married well after the age when they would normally have children. Women who are after menopause, or men who are in their 70s or 80s or 90s. And people that age do in fact get married all the time. And it's okay, because we don't require people to have children to prove that they're worthy of a marriage license. Whether they're straight, or whether they're gay. So, I have yet to hear a single argument from anyone that didn't boil down to 2 reasons. 2 in the same-sex marriage issue. The first is, it makes me uncomfortable. I can't argue with that. I'm sorry that it makes you uncomfortable. But there is no constitutional right to you being granted your every whim. You have no constitutional right to not be offended. There are things in the world that I find really offensive. But since they're legal, and they involve consenting adults, there's not anything I can do about them. Occasionally, I speak out about it. Right here, in fact. But most of the time, I just walk away. Why? Because I'm tolerant. Because I accept that consenting adults can do what they want, and it's none of my business. And the second reason I hear is that it boils down to, my religion says that it's wrong. Again, you have the right to believe that. Your holy book has the right to state that. But you do not have the right to take your religious belief, ensconce it in secular law, and impose it upon the land around you. If your church says that same-sex marriage is wrong, then don't engage in same-sex marriage. It's that simple. So the ADF apparently is just about bullying people in court. And to me, the most salient point in all of this is that the lawyer defending Proposition 8 in the Perry versus Schwarzenegger case could not explain to the judge how same-sex marriage is going to cause societal harm. The judge asked him straight out, what harm will same-sex marriage cause to society? And the lawyer replied, I don't know. So, to me, that sums it up right there. If the people defending this case don't know how it's bad, then it must not be bad. So why don't we get out of the way and let people who love each other get married?